Welcome back, folks, to some more Star Control 2. Ready to get back in it? I hope so. Let's get some historical data.
What aspect of history, Captain?
I would like to know about the other star-faring races.
Which group of aliens?
The members of the Old Alliance.
Okay, which race?
Alright, we can get all kinds of information from this guy. How about the Shofixti?
The Shofixti are a race of intelligent marsupials who had been civilized for only a few decades when the war began. They were discovered in the Delta Gorno system by the Ihat, who adopted the unlifted Shofixti, giving them advanced technology and cultural definition. Shofixti are noble and fearless warriors, Captain. In addition, their incredible fecundity and rapid maturation rate kept Alliance ranks solid, even at the worst part of the war. You know, I once flew as an observer aboard one of their ships. On a routine patrol. We never even saw the enemy. But I could never stop thinking about the glory device that had struck to the bottom of its hull.
Tell me about the Ihat.
The Ihat are a race of ancient warrior clans who have been traveling the stars for many centuries. The clans are highly competitive and sometimes even wage war on each other. But the clans are all loyal to the Queen and her royal family, known as the Veepzeeps. The Veepzeeps have been in power for over 2,000 years, and it is said that during their rule, the Ihat have never lost a battle.
Tell me about the heirloom.
I like to think that I'm not a bigoted person, Captain, especially when it comes to allies. But there's just something about the heirloom that gives me the creeps. One thing I'll say for them, though, they possess some technique for moving really fast through hyperspace. They'll never let us know what it was, but it's sure to beat the pants off our fastest ships.
Tell me about the Chinjesu.
The Chinjesu were the leaders of the Alliance, even though they refused to accept formally the title. I don't know if their silicon-based biology is just plain superior to our old carbon models, or if it's a fantastic intellects were the product of an ancient peaceful culture. Whatever the reason, I'd rather be taking orders from Chinjesu than any other life form. Absolutely. One of the more amazing things about them was that they never used hyperwave communicators. They could send such messages naturally. And their natural hyperwave receptors were much more sensitive than even our best units.
Tell me about the
We didn't really get much of a chance to learn about those mechanical beings. But I'll tell you what I know. They are the product of a distant, unknown culture, who sent a giant factory ark into our region of space many centuries ago. The Mother Ark, that's what Earth Press called it, churned out millions of robots and then finally broke down. I don't know why they didn't repair the Mother Ark. Maybe they can't. My personal guess as why they were sent here is they were the leading edge of colonization project. And once they have tamed enough new worlds, the genuine colonists, whoever they are, will arrive to claim their due.
Tell me about the Cyrene.
Most raw recruits see the Cyrene as nothing more than warm, breathing pinups. Warm they are, and yes, they do breathe, most magnificently. But Captain, they are far from more simple joy units. Their history shows that the Cyrene established and maintained a peaceful culture. From their Bronze Age to the discovery of starflight. Before their planet was destroyed in a horrible cataclysm, their world was an Eden.
That is enough about the Alliance for now.
What other group of aliens are you interested in?
The battle thralls and the hierarchy.
Which species?
Tell me about the Mycon.
The Mycon are hard to get a handle on. In fact, I'm not sure any human has ever a real conversation with the Mycon. What we know of them we have learned from their corpses, which I may add, have a nasty habit of coming back to life when thawed out from a decompression quick freeze. Mycon ships seem to expend a significant amount of energy on life support. This is probably because the Mycon only thrive in temperature close to the melting point of lead. As far as we know, the Mycon are the only race to seek out actively the Urquan in order to become combat slaves.
Tell me about the Spathi.
Imagine facing a cowardly mobile clam armed with a howitzer, and you've got a good idea of what it's like dealing with a Spathi. Although they tend to avoid battles as much as their masters will allow, once in battle, a Spathi eluder is one tough cookie. I've heard a rumor, though I don't believe it myself, that a rogue band of courageous Spathi broke away from the main Starfleet, painted their ships black with bright red stripes, and formed the Black Spathi Squadron dedicated to performing brave and hostile deeds. Like I said, I have to see it to believe it.
Tell me about the Unga.
It's unfortunate that the Unga fell to the Alquan so early in the war, because I suspect we would have gotten along well with those big blob creatures. At the very least, it would have been entertaining. We know them to be a bit better than most races because they were eager to talk with our ships. Before, after, and during battle. Their Alut imitated that they had a relationship with the Umgla before the Urquan arrived. But I don't know any details.
Tell me about the Androsnip.
When I was flying combat missions along the Coward Front, there were nothing we feared more than the Androsnip hit-and-run squadron. Their Blazer starships were more than a match for our cruisers. So we steered clear of Eta Blepkula, their home star. In addition, I think each of us aboard the ship knew deep down in our hearts that the Androsynth had damn good reasons for hating us. Our grandparents had kept them as slaves for nearly 50 years.
Tell me about the Ilrath.
I still have nightmares about one of those spiders, an Ilrath, taking me prisoner, using me in one of their 6 sacrifices to Dogar and Kazon, their twin gods of destruction and torment. Those guys were almost as scary as the Androsynth to those of us Deep Space Patrol. Their Avenger starships could appear out of nowhere and melt a cruiser down to slag in seconds. Luckily for us, the bulk of the Irath fleet was thrown against the Chinjusu and the
Tell me about the Vox.
The starship Far Voyager, under the command of Captain Jeffrey Elrand, encountered the Vox near Beta Mira. Although the details are hazy, it's generally accepted that Rand offended the Vox starship commander with an inadvertent insult. The resulting tension delayed the Vox entry into Alliance long enough for the Urquan to enter the region and forced to subjugate the Vox. With the Vox on their side, the hierarchy grew strong enough to attack the Alliance. The rest, as they say, is history.
That's enough information about the hierarchy.
Are there any alien races who weren't in the war? None that we had made formal contact with. The Chinjusu implied that they had met at least 2 other starfaring species, one near the Glycus constellation and the other directly forward from Procyon. The Aluolilea once mentioned having some fun with the alien races in Draconis, but like so much else with the Arilu, they never revealed the whole story. I am sure there are hundreds more alien races in our galaxy, but beyond what I have told you, our guess is as good as mine.
I have sufficient information.
Would you like information on the other aspect of history?
I am interested in the war against the hierarchy.
What's about the war?
How did the war with the Urquan start?
Earth got involved late in the game, in 2112, when the Chinjusu arrived in our solar system for the first time. So let's back up a few years, to 2098, when the Chinjusu super-sensitive receivers detected a strange signal from the old kohr-ah constellation. Though even the Chinjusu didn't know, it was the first sign of the Urquan's arrival. The Urquan, having detected the presence of many sentient species, were beaming out an exultant hunting cry. The first direct evidence of the Urquan's intent was the sudden conquest of Unga, a solitary though not unfriendly species, in the Orionus constellation. The Chinjusu, distraught by invasion, were further angered when the Urquan ... turned their fleets with the hostile but weak Ilrath race. A hastily assembled defense force, the and Chinjusu vessels turned the Urquan fleet aside, but the invader moved into Spathy's space, rapidly subjugating that race. With each new conquest, the Urquan fleet grew larger as it added slave vessels to its ranks. Earth joined the Chinjusu to form the Alliance of Free Stars at about the same time. As the Andriel stars fell to the Urquan Armada, before the ink was dry on our agreement with the Chinjusu in 2116, a new race appeared in orbit around the moon and asked for admittance to the Alliance. It was the Arulialile. The timing seemed unusual, and the Arialu were definitely weird, looking like a saucerman from Mars. But we were so busy cranking up our mothballed heavy industry that we didn't really pay it much attention at the time.
What happened during the war?
At the start of the war, here on Earth, we were working like crazy, churning out hundreds of heavy cruisers and smaller support vehicles. The Urquan were busy too. Unbeknownst to us, they had moved down toward the Luton star group and were attacking the Vux, who only the Ehat even knew existed. Our botched first contact with the Vux took place in 2119, and it was the biggest single mistake we ever fucking made. After defeating the Vux, the Urquan fleets ran smack into the combined might of the Ehat and the Shofixti, supported by the first wave of our cruisers. Again, the Urquan turned away from the hard spot to attack the weak, though we just thought they were running away. In fact, the Urquan had found another independent alien race, the Mycon, in the Bray constellation. The Mycon's voluntary submission to the Urquan brought the return of Urquan fleets. Now swollen with 100 devastating Mycon pod ships. The last entrants to the conflict were the Cyrene, a race of space gypsies, who had escaped the hierarchy by moving their vast fleet of slow-moving inhabitants into human space. With side set, the last Urquan offensive begun.
How did the war end, Commander?
The Urquan came roaring through Vux space and tried to push past the Indy and the Mira star systems. Their onslaught was barely repulsed by our counterattack, made hardly a dent in the hierarchy forces. But we held the line. The core word front remained intact. Over the following 10 years, there were many great battles between the combined Alliance Starfleet and the Urquan in their hierarchy of battle thralls. Then in 2134, a dramatic shift in the balance of power took place. This must have been just about the time the science research mission was sent to your planet, Advela. Our fleets were pushed back from the Indimira line to beyond Raynet. Holding Rigel cost grievously in Chinjusu forces, and the Urquan, recognizing this weakness, shifted to the focus, the brunt of their forces, on Procyon. That was the last we heard of Chinjusu, and the Mehimehim. A few weeks later, waves of ships hit us from all directions. When Ceres Station, our outpost in the asteroid belt, fell to the hierarchy, we knew we were beaten. But we fought on anyways. 3 days later, the Urquan vaporized our last remaining laser forts on the moon. And dreadnoughts took up geosynchronous positions above Rome. Moscow, Beijing, Tokyo, London, Buenos Aires, and Washington. We'd lost the war and we knew it, but the Urquan decided to make it real clear. And that's why if you check our most recent maps, you won't find Buenos Aires.
What happened after the war?
After the UN submitted their formal surrender, we were given a week to decide the nature of our servitude. The Urquan demanded that the decision be made through popular vote. When all the votes were tallied, Earth had chosen not to fight for the Urquan. We had become a fallow slave world. We were given a month to withdraw all our people and equipment to Earth. Anyone or anything we left off planet would be destroyed after the shield went up. Then the Urquan broadcast an odd message. All objects of human construction more than 500 years old were to be abandoned. We didn't know what the Urquan meant until they moved their dreadnoughts to new orbital positions and opened fire on the surface with their fusion weapons. In seconds, large sections of London, Paris, and other European cities were incinerated. At first we thought they were going to annihilate us after all. And we noticed that they were also striking such targets as the Giza Pyramids, the Parthenon in Athens, the Stonehenge. Curiously, the United States was almost untouched. The flaming rain lasted for 40 hellish hours. It took days after we crawled from our smoldering shelters to realize what the Urquan had done. Our new masters had targeted every building, monument, or other man-made construction older than 500 years and destroyed it. In those 2 days, we lost most of the history of mankind. In some cases, the Urquan destroyed places which we did not even suspect were significant. From their positions in orbit, the dreadnoughts blew away a kilometer of land in central Iraq, vaporized several targets in the Amazon rainforest, punched a big hole through the Antarctic ice cap to destroy something deep under the surface, and melted a broad swath of ocean floor in the southeastern Atlantic. Then, just a couple of days later, the shield went up, and our contact with the outside world stopped. The next time I saw the stars was 8 years ago, when I transferred up here to be the new commander of the Starbase.
Thanks, Commander, for the briefing. And the 18 minutes of fucking bullshit.
Would you like information on another aspect of history?
Well, while you're at it, I need some information on ancient galactic history, actually.
We have some data on the subject.
Great. What can you tell me about the precursors?
Hell, you probably know more about them than I do, but here goes. About 200,000 years ago, when our great to the nth grandparents were just starting to play with stone knives and bearskins, a starfaring species suddenly appeared on the galactic scene and spread like wildfire. We found evidence of their presence just about everywhere. From the orbital platform in Alpha Centauri to the stack of data plates in the cave of Pluto, to some nameless widget found in a voodoo shop in New Orleans. Though we've never found a precursor body or even picture of one, we can conjecture that they looked like by examining the scale and layout of their equipment. Such an analysis indicates that they were giants, say 5 to 8 meters tall and twice as wide. I don't know if they looked more like a brontosaur or an elephant. Anyway, about 3,000 years after the precursors made their dramatic appearance, they vanished, poof, As far as we can tell, it took less than a decade to happen.
What about the other races from the ancient past?
You mean besides the precursors? Well, the only information I have is second-hand. Based on the research by a Chindesu historian that I read at the academy, Zak, the historian, found some evidence that there was a group of alien races who formed an interstellar empire not too far from here, about 22,000 years ago. The only species in this empire who actually lived in our region of space was the race of rock-like creatures who lived in the Vulpecula constellation. The presence of the hostile androsynth in that part of space severely limited Zak's research. He never even found out the race's name.
Is there any indication that aliens visited Earth in the past?
Yes, there is. Aside from the precursor relics we have found on Earth, often in museums, mislabeled as modern art, we have discovered disturbing evidence of much more recent visitations. Perhaps you are already aware that during the mid to late 20th century, there were uncountable UFO sightings as well as a dozen reported encounters with alien life forms. Although we can discount many of the reports as wishful fabrication or trauma translation, the military authorities of that time kept a secret record of the incidents which were legitimate. In each case, the aliens are almost identical in appearance. They have white skin and minimal facial features except for huge almond-shaped eyes, which are often described as glowing or luminescent. This description fits almost perfectly the aureolulae. In most of all the legitimate encounters, the people involved described both physically examined or modified by aliens. In some cases, unusual pregnancies occurred, and in almost every instance, there were repeat visitations, as though the aureolulae were doing checkups on their subjects. We never got a chance to confront the aureolulae, but what they did to us and why, I wonder if we ever will.
This is fascinating, but I must move on. I'm done with history, thanks. 22 minutes is all I can take. I would like your input on how we can defeat the Urquan.
Can you be more specific?
How should I deal with the aliens I meet?
That all depends on whom you meet, doesn't it, Captain? In all seriousness, if you encounter the Irath Vux, Androsynth, or other hierarchy battle thralls, I wouldn't hold out much hope for a peaceful encounter. So if you feel you have to advantage, attack. The resources you will scavenge from the enemy's wreckage are well worth the effort. If you can find alliance races who are in position to help us, you must convince them to join with us. Their assistance may be critical to our success.
Where can I find the most useful, plentiful mineral resources?
If you have patience, I would recommend you spend several months, or even a year, gathering mineral resources. You can find such minerals on almost any planet's surface, but the quality and density will vary depending on the type of planet you're on. Base metals are probably the most common minerals you'll find, but they aren't particularly valuable. You can find rare, precious, and radioactive elements on metal-rich worlds, such as Mercury. An old miner once told me you can tell the relative quality of a planet's minerals based on the planet's colors as seen from space. To remember the color sequence from good to bad, the miner had a mnemonic, which went something like, very young orangutans could grow bananas, perhaps rather well. In also that case, the mineral yields will be better at hotter stars. Temper is related to the size and color. Red stars are coolest, then orange, yellow, green, blue, and the hottest stars are white.
How can we deal with the Urquan?
Captain, I wish I knew I had an easy answer, but I don't. The only way I can see of liberating Earth as well as our Alliance allies is to destroy the Urquan and their armada of battle thralls entirely.
Commander, how can we engineer the fall of the Urquan hierarchy?
To defeat our enemies, we will need awesome strength both in your flagship and fleet, as well as the assistance of powerful new allies. Though combat will be unavoidable and sometimes necessary to achieve our goals, I am certain that your wits will be at least as important as your weapons. You will need to explore this region of space, gathering resources and information wherever you go.
How could I find the Urquan?
I don't know, Captain. but I suspect their battle thralls will know more than we do. So I suggest you try to gather information from them, perhaps by force.
How can we attack the Urquan most effectively?
At first, your ship will be far too vulnerable to prevent frontal assaults on the Urquan. Even when your ship is at full power, we are faced with the reality that the hierarchy has thousands of ships. You cannot win the fight alone, Captain. You will need allies. Also, toward the end of the war, when the hierarchy broke through the Cold front, we heard rumors that the Urquan had unleashed some kind of super weapon, which was unstoppable by normal means. You need to find out if that rumor is true, Captain. Because if the Urquan do have such a weapon, we will have to find some way to stop it, or all of our efforts are for naught.
How can I make an alliance? And with whom?
If you encounter an unknown alien race, proceed carefully and diplomatically. We need all the friends we can get, and we certainly can't afford any more enemies. Remember, Captain, with your precursor starship you hold a stick of awesome power, but there will be situations when dealing with the alien race where a carrot will serve far better than a stick. But first you must determine what carrot the alien wants.
What is the fastest way for us to build up our strength?
You need to accumulate enough resources that we can build up your flagship and assemble a strong fleet. I would also recommend that you acquire blueprints for other more powerful ships than our trusty cruiser. I suspect the aliens will not give up such prints unless you form an alliance with them.
I have learned what I need to know about the subject for now.
I think we've heard enough. Bring back lots of minerals, Captain Roundstock.
Holy shit, alright.
Alright, well, let's go do some mining. Actually, I might need to refuel. That'd probably be a good idea. Let's see what we can do here with. What the fuck is... Don't even ask me what's going on with this shit. And of course we have to make our backup here. Alright, so we got some turning and thruster. Which I can already feel is a little bit better here. Let's go do some mining. This is Venus. Venus ain't got shit. The planet Venus was, of course, named after the Roman goddess of beauty. Also known in Greek mythology as Aphrodite. It's Mercury. Let's go check out Mars. This is a lot what the game involves. Holy shit! Easy there, big guy. A lot of exploration. So we have some mineral heres. We gotta grab everything. And we're gonna do a few more mineral swoops here before we end the video. Kind of takes a while to get used to the movement here. Here we have Jupiter and the moons. You can see some of the planets and the moons are safe. While others, the ones with the solar flares that we encountered in the first video, not so much. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up Jupiter's moons here. And then I think I'm also going to head to Saturn and Uranus. Yeah. We'll see you next video, folks. Thanks for watching Star Control 2.